lies a turning point. But what I'm saying is that there are fundamentals that need to change. Otherwise, in 4 years, we're going to be here again looking for another Messiah. They don't exist. They don't. What you have are a people who should be prepared to hold the people they put into positions of authority accountable, regardless of where they come from. The whataboutism that happens in Nigerian politics is annoying. They arrest somebody, he has stolen money. What about? Let them deal with that one, then they can get to the other one too. So I guess if there's anything I really want to say is that in going to the polls, it's really important to interrogate everybody that presents themselves. I think the greatest tragedy in this country is that we don't have internal party democracy. And so every time we go to the polls, the choices, in my view, are less than stellar. It's almost as if people are determined to give us the worst of Nigeria to lead us. And so we have to choose somebody who will come in and allow for the reforms that are required in the next 4 years to decentralize power. I believe in that. We now have legislation that has said local governments should be autonomous. We want the person who will allow that to come to being in the real sense, so that power is closer to the people. And we want a center that looks after the big things. So in talking to people who want to become president, please, can we focus on asking the questions that will help us determine whether they will have the political will to allow us the things that we need to do in order to make this country work. And I know we've kept to sort of focus on the presidency, but hey, your governors have power, oh. Serious power. And they have big money. If you look at the budgets and the way they are disbursed, you understand that actually it isn't fair to always blame everything on the center. So can you also focus on your state governors and the people you're putting in those positions? That too makes a huge difference to what happens in this country. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Let me welcome the Lagos State Government, represented by the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, led by Mrs. Yetunde Simpson, Director Research and Development. Madam, you are welcome. You know, Kadaraya said, Nigeria is broken. She wants us to think differently. What does it take to change the mindset of a people? Is it just by telling them, change your mindset? You know, changing the mindset is a project. There are certain structures that must be put in place. Look at this. I want to take a quote from Lee Kuan Yew's book, From Third Word to First Word. Listen attentively to what he said. How they brought public order to Singapore. He says, we cannot afford to forget the public order, personal security, economic and social progress and prosperity, Please, he says, economic and social progress and prosperity are not the natural order of things. They depend on ceaseless effort and attention from an honest and effective government the people must elect. Not just that, he said they went on to redefine the education system of Singapore so that they begin to think like Singaporeans. The Nigerian education system will not be able to redefine the mind of Nigerians. Your education system has a lot of role to play. Go and study the Chinese education system. The system is to indoctrinate you. It's like going to church. You read the Bible. There's something you are holding, the Bible, the Quran, to affect your mind. There's no Nigerian Bible. There's no Nigerian concept. That is why Nigeria is broken. And you have to lay that foundation. So when I see Peter Obi or I look at Sowore, and I'm listening to their statement, I'm saying, where is that foundation that will create mind redemption? Mogalu calls it a change of our worldview. That's the term he used. I don't call it corruption anymore. It's a culture. So if you are telling me I'm coming to stamp out corruption, I'm saying, hey, you see me don't understand, it has moved from corruption to culture. You don't stamp out culture. She says she has not benefited from Nigeria. And I hear that all the time. I used to say it too. But I think I have benefited. But I might not be comfortable with what I get. Nigeria has provided certain facilities for us, but they are not good enough. You fly from Murtala Mohammed Airport to any part of the world. It's Nigeria that provided the airport. You went to University of Lagos. Mogalu went to Nsukka. Nnamdi Azikiwe and Co. built this university. Awolowo and Co. Obafemi Awolowo University. But they are not good enough. You know what I'm trying to say is that let's calm down a bit. We are too angry. Let's calm down a bit. She mentioned right to self-determination. Wait, before I even move further, Kadera, have you benefited from Nigeria?
You want to do a Kadria on me, eh? No. I think it's important to quantify. Don't forget the context I was told was in the context of people saying, those of us from the north, is because we're benefiting from Nigeria. That's why we keep talking the language of unity. So it is in that context of whether there was this disproportionate benefit. I mean, I can tell you a quick story. When I went to do my master's degree, we went to visit a friend, a friend's friend who was a lawyer, a Nigerian lawyer. And the guy sat there, and as is usual when Nigerians gather together, the issue of Nigeria came up, and I'm talking some 20 years ago. So even then, we were already talking. And the guy looked at me and said, see you now, you're here doing your master's. How won't you defend Nigeria? Is it not our money that you're using to go to school? I was very ashamed when I looked at him and I said, actually, the British government is paying for my education. I'm a Chevening scholar. Because there was just an assumption that my father was a big man sitting somewhere in Nigeria that had gathered government money and was sending me abroad to school. So this is the sort of point. Of course, I benefited from Nigeria. I went to Bayero University. It's a federal university, right? So there are lots of benefits I've accrued, especially, I mean, this generation less so, but those of us that are much older, yes. There are some things that Nigeria did for us. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I needed to raise that point. You see, we've also vilified this country, that we've so defined it negatively, and that is what you get. You have so vilified the country that you feel you are not responsible for anything. You have so abdicated the responsibility of a citizen because some leaders have also abdicated theirs. I'm saying no. For you to retrieve the country, you need to retrieve some of your opinions and begin to redefine them from your family, from the church, from the home. It is that redefinition that will produce that leader that will redefine the system. If you go to leadership with this mindset, you will join the bandwagon. So I'm calling for sober reflection. Unity of purpose. Unity of purpose. She says all ethnic groups are involved. That is clear. A 4-kilometer pipeline for 9 years, and you are just discovering it. It's a blind country, right? But now the country can see. So we have seen the pipeline. So a bit of clarity on the pipeline. We have seen it now. You know, one fundamental issue she raised is the right to self-determination. You know, there was a time Akim Baba Ahmed and the Northern Elders Forum said, if they want Biafra, let's give it to them. Enough. What? Someone told Dudua, we give it to them. I think we still need to discuss those subjects as we go. Perhaps Awolowo saw the future, and when he wanted that clause in the Constitution, before the independent Constitution, the right for secession. But who opposed it? Nnamdi Azikiwe. Who in 1966 created a unitary state? Agu Ironsi. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just raising some of these issues so that we can have a broad discourse. Before I call Morgalu, you have been listening. You have anything to say? Who wants to say something from the audience? The microphone, please. So that this side is not left out. Microphone. back here.
Hello.
Good.
All protocol duly observed. Mazi Wachuku Sydney, Chairman, Media Tiger Communications Limited. Straight to my point. So far, the speakers have said something that, seem to be unifying the country, as it were. But at a point, you did mention something that Dr. Hare mentioned that if Oduduwa wants to go, give it to them. If Biafra wants to go, give it to them. And at that point, I looked at my uncle, there, Charlie, and he smiled. Now, if Biafra is giving to Igbos, assumed, then Yorubas get Oduduwa. Who keeps Nigeria as an entity? Thank you.
Just one more, then we come back to this podium. The lady.
Standing on the existing protocols, my name is Dabira Oluwadeyinka. I'm an activist, and I'm also a political party chairman. And I am impressed at this kind of forum. I would just like to make a suggestion. I think forums such as this should continue to come up so that Nigerians can be sensitized into going into the 2023 election, because by so doing, people would not just form wagon, train, and just advocating for a change without understanding the in-depth of a change. We no longer want a change from the top to the bottom, but we want a change from the bottom to the top. So this kind of platform can actually educate most of us, especially in politics, to see beyond individuals and our personal interests and go for the interest that projects Nigeria to the kind of future that we can be proud of when we travel out of these shores. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I will come back to you at some point, okay? Thank you. Whenever I travel, I'm proud of whether you check my passport 20 times on your own. I'm proud of the green passport. And I hold it boldly. In fact, when you keep me standing, it makes me special. Hold your passport well. Nigeria have gone through rough roads. But when Nigeria takes off, Africa takes off. We are taking off soon. Now let me call Linkwayu says, to achieve the Singapore of advanced development, the Ministry of Education was given the responsibility to unleash practical initiatives to change people's thinking and attitudes. He says they gave themselves a decade to accomplish this. And Singapore has moved from third world to first world. Let's welcome to the podium Professor Kingsley Moghalu.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, good afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm behind the time. Let me stand on all existing protocols. But I'm very honored to be here. First, because of what this event that is now done annually represents. The community of Nigeria and Nigerians in action. This is a community-centered event. It's an event of the people, for the people, by the people. That's what Felabration is. Fela that we celebrate, I don't need to speak too much about the impact he had on this country. He was a great man, a man ahead of his time, both in terms of his music, which today is a worldwide phenomenon, and in terms of his political thinking. But we still have not come to his political thinking. We are just still dancing to his music. One day we will come to his political vision. We are still in search of it. But I'm always proud to be here also because of my personal connection to the family. 59 years ago, when I was born here in Lagos, my baptismal godmother was Fela's mother, Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, and she gave me the name Ayodele. It's one of my names. It is symbolic of the tragic events in Nigeria. My father and my mother were in the foreign service at the time. My father was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And shortly after I was born, about 3 months after, he went on his first posting to Geneva and then to Washington, D.C. 3 or 4 years later, the Civil War came and broke everybody apart. And so in the 70s, when we were in the East, and my parents were telling me this story, and I said, oh, but where is that auntie? My parents said, you know, the Civil War scattered everybody. And so it's a story about Nigeria. And let me tell you one more story about Nigeria before I go to the elections. There are many truths about this country. They stand side by side. The fact that some people are agitating, they have a reason why they're agitating. It is also a fact. But it is also a fact that there is far more that binds and unites us than we realize. And therefore, that makes it true that many of the narratives that Kadiria talked about, that Hakim talked about, are narratives woven by our politicians for their selfish interests. Many years ago, I lived in this town as a young graduate, working in Newswatch magazine in those days, as a lawyer and as a journalist. And I wanted to go abroad to study. And I got admission to the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, one of the world's top graduate schools of international affairs. But the Naira had just been devalued in 1990. The school fees were $25,000. I could not afford it. And so I deferred the admission and started looking for money. Where did I go? Idumota. That was my natural. Where is the money? Some Igbo traders in Idumota. Perhaps they will help. I spoke to a few. Try. Congratulations. Business is hard, you know. Congratulations. This is a very big achievement, but the business is hard. I got that about 10 times. I gave up. No help. An idea occurred to me. One man, I had admired him from when I was very young. He was the Director General of the Institute of International Affairs in the early 70s. And I had read his CV, and he was an alumnus of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, where he took his master's, and then later went to Oxford and took his PhD. His name is Bolaji Akinwande Akinyemi. And I said, I took my pen and wrote to him and said, here I am. I have an admission from your former school, and I'm looking for help. Can I come and see you? I said, big man. He probably will read the letter and throw it into the dustbin. About 2 weeks later, I got a reply. Come and see me at so-so and so time. in my office. I took a taxi and went. I didn't have a car. Arrived at his office. I had my CV. I was prepared. You know, there are some people when you meet them in life, it's one chance. You better be prepared. One chance. I had my CV and I had a very neat dress. And he and I spoke for some time. And he looked at the CV and said, young man, you know, this is very impressive that at 27 you have achieved all this, you have an admission, but I don't have money. I cannot pay for your school fees. But there's something I will do. I will write to the school. And so he wrote to the school a short 2-paragraph letter that every time I read that letter today, I still shed tears. Powerful letter of introduction saying this man will be a future leader in Nigeria and Africa. Give him a scholarship. About 2 months later, a letter arrived from the school with a scholarship. Covering my tuition of $25,000, and I was given a fellowship with a name. It was called the John Gillespie Fellow. That's what you will be. And that's how I left the country. Because I was admitted to that school, when I wanted to go for my visa at the U.S. Embassy, they said, what? You were admitted to the Fletcher School? Don't come. Just send your papers. Don't come for interview. They stamped the visa and sent back my passport with a travel grant. That is my ticket to America. Now, this was done, all this was through somebody who was from a different part of the country. The people I first went to for help, and I thought that that was whence help would come. They were not so helpful. They were only congratulating me on my achievement. So this is lesson number 1. Lesson number 2. To cut a long story short, many of you know that I was deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria from 2009 to 2014. But many people may not know how that appointment came about. It came about at a World Economic Conference. I was in the United Nations. When I finished from the Fletcher School, I joined the UN and was in the UN for 17 years, went from entry level to the highest rank. And when I finished, I felt I was still young enough to have another career. I resigned and went into business as a consultant in risk management. And as a consultant, I attended the World Economic Forum in Cape Town to speak. And there, at my table at the dinner, no prior knowledge, was a young man who was just 4 days old, having been confirmed by the Senate as the governor of the central bank. His name was Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, as of that time. Today is Muhammadu Sanusi II. And so, when I saw him and we greeted each other, in my mind I said, wow, hopefully there will be a business from this opportunity. And we thought, I gave him my brochure, and he spent most of the dinner reading the brochure. My wife kicked me under the table and said, your friend is antisocial. He's not socializing, he's just reading your propaganda. Of course, she spoke to me in Igbo so that nobody will hear what she was saying. After some time, Sanusi closed the brochure. He said, Kingsley, I have a better idea. Would you like to be deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria? I'm like, what's going on? I was looking for business. So he said, no, don't answer. Sleep on it. Tomorrow, let us have lunch. The next day, we had lunch for 2 hours, and he explained his vision for the bank, the banking system. And he says, this opening in the bank, there are 4 deputy governors in the bank. This particular one will lead the implementation of all the reforms I have in mind. And you fit the profile. So you can sit outside and be complaining and writing your articles in The Guardian, which I read sometimes, wonderful. Or you can come home with me and we do this thing together. And he says, I don't appoint deputy governors, the president does, appoints the governor and the deputy governor. So what I'm going to do is that I'll recommend you to Yaradua if you agree. But I know that it is whoever I recommend that he will appoint. I didn't know at that time what it meant to be a deputy governor of the central bank. I didn't know how many people were lobbying for this job. And I was there doing Yanga. And I'll ask him this question, he will answer. I'll ask him this question, he will answer. I asked him the salary. He told me some funny figure. I said, Lamido, that cannot work now. I have a mortgage in Switzerland. I own a home from my lawful employment. This salary you're calling cannot pay that mortgage. He looked at me and laughed. He said, okay, first of all, let me tell you, we'll do a reform of the salary. I know it's low. But all that is a long story. The point I'm trying to make is how I came back to the country after a long sojourn abroad to serve my country. 5 years at the bank, we did a lot of reforms under his ultimate leadership. I am grateful for that opportunity to have served this country, and I believe the record stands till today. And when I went into politics, after that service, I became a professor at the Fletcher School. Again, a great honor. While I was teaching there and I looked at Nigeria, what was going on, I wasn't happy. I said, I will run for president. I came back and went into politics. If I had touched a penny while I was deputy governor of the central bank that did not belong to me, you would have heard about it. But because I didn't, I could say whatever I liked to whoever I liked. So the point is that we are not necessarily as divided as we think we are in this country. What has happened is that we lack unifying leadership. We lack what Kaderia has identified as unity of purpose. And in 2023, we should be looking for a leader that will begin or rediscover the task of unifying this country and giving it a unity of purpose. Despite the diversity of religion or ethnic, it is possible for Nigeria to be united by something that rises above the things that divide us. That is what builds great nations, and it's called a worldview, to use a big grammar. Look at every country of the world. The United States, France, Britain, India, China. Look at every country that has been successful. Every such country has a worldview, a philosophical foundation that drives it. In the United States, where they have a lot of diversity, like in Nigeria, but anytime they quarrel, anytime there are big social issues, when people invoke the idea of America, everybody will shit their sword. When they see the flag, they stand at attention. How is this created? It is created by two things. One, the educational system, to come back to Obilo. The educational system is the foundation of every country. That's what creates patriotism. That's what creates values. That's what gives people skills to be competitive in the world. Today, our education system has collapsed. We are not discussing the quality of education. We are discussing whether or not people are actually physically present in school, because ASU is on strike. That's what we're discussing. We're not even discussing when they go back, what are they teaching? What is the quality of the education young people are having? The educational system in Nigeria today has become the first point of contact in a long line of unemployment. You go out of school, you come out and you stand on the line. Many of them are not employable anymore, because what we should be doing for the 21st century is to educate our children with skills. There is no country that can rise to greatness without a philosophical foundation, without respect for knowledge. We're in a knowledge society all around the world. Without respect for ideas that shape the world. In Nigeria, our electorate is part of our problem. In the 1950s and 60s, our leaders had a lot of intellectualism, whether it was Zik, whether it was Awolowo, whether it was Sardauna or Ahmadu Bello. They were people of ideas. They were not perfect. There were issues, structural issues, ethnic issues. Some of the things the British did before they left. But at least they had ideas. And they were using those ideas in their regions to develop their regions. Today in Nigeria, when you're a politician and you're an intellectual, our citizens have been accultured to saying, that man is a brilliant man, but he's just blowing grammar. Any group of people who think like this and express like this can never elect the kind of leaders they need. So they will get the one they deserve. They will get the leaders they deserve. And so as we go to 2023, there are three players in view. The candidates, the voters, and INEC. These are the three players that will determine the outcome. 2023 is a watershed year in Nigerian democracy. Go and mark it. You better believe it, because things are coming to a head. The suffering, the poverty, the insecurity. But is 2023 going to give us the opportunity to move forward in truth? Or will it be just another year in the 4-yearly recycling cycle? Where people will come with the crowds, they will speak, they will mobilize along the lines of ethnicity, along the lines of religion, along the lines of money. But we pray that money will fail in 2023. So our politicians, I'm asking our politicians, especially the presidential candidates, not to be lazy intellectually. If you look at all of them, they're all educated people. But what happens in Nigeria is that when you enter politics, the political culture dumbs you down. If you're educated and seen as refined, you might begin to look like a fish out of water. So you go down. You make yourself subhuman. But thinking is more important than we think. And any group of people that refuses to think will never make progress. There is a difference between existing and thriving. In Nigeria, we like to, quote unquote, to manage. How are you? We are managing. How about they? We they manage. A former head of state, I spoke with some time ago on his birthday. And he said, Kingsley, how are you? I said, Your Excellency, body the inside cloth. And he almost dropped the phone laughing. So this is how we have become. But 2023 should be the year when we begin to walk back from disaster. We need to find that leader who can lead the difficult conversations we must all have in this country. We avoid telling ourselves the truth. We talk about unity. Some people are talking about unity and you're watching their action. They'll come tell you unity, unity. You, Oduduwa, you, Biafrans. We won't tolerate this nonsense. The unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. Meanwhile, all the parastatals are filled with his or her ethnic compatriots. They're telling you about unity. And they're blaming those who are agitating. The task of leadership is to engage in difficult questions. Nigeria is not working because we have walked away from the original consensus. What was that consensus? It was formed between 1947 and 1951. That we're a big country of diverse people, and what will work for us, because we don't want anyone or any part of the country to dominate the other. What we want is federalism. Who was in agreement with this consensus and who was opposed? The Sadana was in agreement, Ahmadu Bello. Awolowo was in agreement, Ahmadu Bello. Who was in opposition? Zik. Zik did not agree. He did not believe in federalism. He wanted a unitary state because he felt in his own mind that that would bring people closer together in his mind. The others made very strong arguments to him. Eventually, he came around to that consensus. So the three of them agreed. That was the basis of the McPherson Constitution. Period. And that was the basis on which the 1960 Constitution of Nigeria made Nigeria a federal state. It's not an accident that the United States is a federation. It's not an accident that Australia, Germany, you name it, Brazil, big countries, India, with diverse populations. It's not an accident that they use a federal system of government, where power is devolved down to people and people can take charge of their destiny. And respect for the idea of being one country is represented in the fact that everybody will answer, we are Nigerians. And the federal government will be in charge of foreign affairs, in charge of defense and the armed forces, in charge of the central bank, in charge of immigration. 6, 7, 8 items that are universal to everybody that belongs to a country. The rest should go down to the local levels. But no, we discovered oil. That was one. But even before then, or after that, the military came and broke the consensus. And like somebody pointed out, who broke it? Ironsi. The problem in this country is that we don't like to tell ourselves the truth. We all want to be victims. But we don't understand that the crisis in this country, we have all hurt one another. Let us start from that basis. If we start from that basis, we can heal. But instead, the narrative of our politics and the narrative of Nigeria, everybody wants to show how they are victims and the other people are villains. You don't make peace that way. I have been in the United Nations. I've been a peacemaker, a peace builder. And I know how to create a consensus to build a nation that has been broken by war and conflict. I did it in Rwanda. I did it in Croatia. I did it in Cambodia. I know what it means. And so when you're electing a president in 2023, let me conclude by saying something that might be a little bit controversial, but a fact. There are 4 functions of a president. The reason we have been making mistakes in elections is that we do not even know what the presidency itself, it's a job, just like any other job. It's not just a political promotion that you earn because you have been a governor, because you have been a senator, no matter your record. You are entitled to run for president. But Chiedumo Oralo has not yet been elected governor or senate, so why should he aspire to be president? For as long as we're thinking like this, we're going nowhere. There are 4 functions. Number 1, national security. Number 2, nation building. Who can put Nigeria back together? Some people are putting the emphasis on their ability to unify the country when they are seeking power. We should hold their feet to the fire. Tell us exactly how. Tell us what you will do. Not to come and tell us I'm this, I'm that. When you get in there, same old story. Sometimes you even look at what is happening now and you begin to wonder. You are tested now to practice that thing you're telling us. And we're watching. So, national security, nation building, which means unifying the country that is diverse and giving us unity of purpose as one nation. Moving Nigeria from country to nation. And then the other meaning of nation building that people don't understand is building institutions that are strong and independent and effective. You cannot have democracy without two things. One, an enlightened, empowered citizenry that knows the issues that need to be dealt with and knows and should assess candidates according to those issues. If you don't have that, you don't have a democracy. So since we don't have that, let us tell ourselves the truth, that at best we are a semi-democracy. Number two, you cannot have a democracy without independent institutions that uphold the rule of law. We don't increasingly have that in Nigeria today. We are hoping that INEC will show itself in 2023 an independent institution. In truth and in fact, we watch, we wait, we pray. So the third requirement of the office of the president is managing the national economy. And the fourth is foreign affairs. Four things. It doesn't go beyond. If you go and look at what the president does every day, it will come into one of these four things. But how many citizens understand what I've just said? No, the man has money. He has entourage. He has money. He has structure. That's why I think I should vote for him to be president. He is likely to win. Likely. So people vote for who they think are likely in their mind to win. They don't ask, if he wins, how will this change my life? No. They just want to be part of a bandwagon to nowhere. And that is what we've been on for 20 years. I would even venture to say that in the first tenure of Obasanjo, there was some effort. So, as we think about 2023, let us understand that we do not yet have the dividends of democracy. Let us understand that it is the task of all our political leaders to educate those they want to vote for them on the ideas that can change their lives and how they are the candidates that can bring those ideas into reality. The absence of ideas and ideology is a very big problem in Nigeria's politics. And if it is not solved in 2023, it will not be different from 2019, it will not be different from 2015 or 2011. This is the time to make the break. This is the time. So let us look for those with ideas. Let us look for those who are committed to a constitutional restructuring of Nigeria that can make Nigeria work for all of us. No victor, no vanquished. That's the kind of restructuring we need. We don't need a restructuring that is for some and against some. No. We have to do what is called manufacturing consensus. And this requires a leader that has political will. I believe it was Hakim that said it. Has the political will to take tough decisions and tough actions. The will and the ability to mobilize consensus. To call my people and say, my people, come, let us discuss. This is where we're going. This is why we're going there. This is why it's beneficial for all of us. And so in the discussion on restructuring, if anybody is reluctant, if they are big enough or strong enough, we should be able to say, okay, we can understand your reservation. Can we do it this way in practice? In practice may mean that when it comes to fiscal federalism, that there may be a transition period when all the states and all the regions fall back to having their own revenues. You cannot say that the oil or the nickel in Kaduna or the oil in the Niger Delta or the gold in Zamfara, that they all belong to the federal government and you call yourself a federal republic. That is an oxymoron. Go and educate yourself about what federalism means. Nigeria cannot be a federal, quote-unquote, name, but in reality a unitary state, and say that we want progress. We must go back to the fundamentals. The oil in Alaska belongs to Alaska. It doesn't belong to Washington. But what we do in recognition of the fact that we are one country is that the revenue from that oil, the state or the region that has it will keep some of it and contribute some of it to the center. Because we all have common services that we all benefit from. That's what federalism is. So it is time in Nigeria, and for us all as Nigerians, to start telling ourselves the truth. Let us have these uncomfortable conversations. Let us sit down and renegotiate Nigeria. Don't listen to anybody that tells you that Nigeria is non-negotiable. Anybody that tells you that is not being honest. Because every country is constantly being negotiated. In Canada, when Quebec wanted to secede, there was a long drawn-out negotiation. They settled it with Canada remaining Canada, but they gave certain special rights to Quebec, including the right for French to become a second language of Canada, officially. This is how civilized people discuss things and resolve them, for God's sake. We shouldn't feel it must be by fire, by force. You cannot legislate happiness. You cannot legislate unity. In 2023, we must elect a leader that has these understandings, the wisdom, the large heart to be able to bring people together, and the ideas to be able to move this country forward. Enough of the politics of dumbness. Thank you.
Thank you, Kingsley Moghalu. I voted for him in 2019. And I did not vote for him because I like him. No. One of the conviction, before the 2019 election, he released a book entitled Build, Innovate, and Grow. That's big. In the book, he highlighted and discussed his agenda for Nigeria. Some of them he just spoke about now. I needed nothing else, and I said, okay, somebody has intellectually described the vision of Nigeria. And Buhari did not provide that for me. Atiku did not provide that document for me. And I voted him. Was I sure he was going to win? I knew he was not going to win. But I know he will win. Politics is a journey. So don't give up. You have won. Now for 2023, is Tinubu discussing like Moghalu? What about Atiku? Kwakwanso? Don't tell me Obi is discussing like Moghalu. The discussion for 2023 has not started. I can see what some people call the Obi fever. Fine, it's good. But I'm waiting for the content of that movement. I think Obi should be fast enough. I need to know the content of the Obi movement. And Tinubu should also let us know the content of his movement. Akim Baba Ahmed has said that the Northern Elders Forum insists that the candidates must come before them to explain their agenda. And he is saying everybody should demand same. Akim Baba Ahmed, I made a point that you said if they want Biafra, give them Biafra. Please explain your point so that we don't misunderstand you.
Well, thank you for that opportunity.
Okay.
One
Hello,
problem.
Sir. Hello, sir. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. We just need to put Kuka on now. Bishop Kuka, he's on the road and we can't keep him waiting. So Bishop Kuka, our ears are open. Let's listen to the Archbishop. Just watch the screens, okay? You can see him. You can see him. Audio. They are working on volume. The technical team is working on it. I don't know how many of us read Kuka's homily, Easter homily. He entitled that homily, "To Mend a Broken Nation," the Easter metaphor. Okay, Father Kuka, can you hear us? Can you unmute? We can't hear you. Kunla Jibadi, we see you. Thank you. Well done, sir. In Kuka's Easter homily, entitled "To Mend a Broken Nation," he came down hard on the present handlers of Nigeria, wondering if those in power do not hear, see, feel, know, or just don't care. While reviewing his homily, I asked, care about what?
I didn't lose it. Bishop,
Hello.
Bishop, my name is
Yeah.
I can see you, we can hear you, sir.
Sorry?
I can see you, and we can, those of us on Zoom can see you and can hear you.
Yes, so I really don't know what to do. I mean, should I go on or what should I do? Because...
Yes, please. Go on, please.
Yes.
All right. Can you confirm that from the... Can you confirm that from the master of ceremony so that I know what to do?
All right, we can hear you, Bishop. Go on.
Okay, so good afternoon, and thank you very much for your patience. It will not be different because this is Nigeria, so our sites are always set at a moderate level. I think that a lot of the things that need to be said, I'm sure have already been said. My being here is more an act of solidarity than anything else. I don't know how Fela himself would have felt at the thought that a bishop would be speaking at an event in his honor. But I am, and a great admirer of the great man. And it is one of the reasons why I decided that I would do whatever I can, to show my solidarity. I shared his passion, his protest. Also, basically, I mean, to admire Fela was also to be unsatisfied about the state of things. And for me, Fela is a great demonstration of the saying, or it interrogates the saying that a tree cannot make a forest. I think Fela demonstrated quite frankly that a tree really and truly can make a forest. Anecdotally, there is the story of a Nigerian president, I don't know whether it was President Shagari, who was said to have visited one of the Caribbean countries. At a wonderful time when Nigeria, as it was said, the problem was not how to spend our money, and the problem was not the money, but what to do and how to spend our money. And as the presidential convoy drove through the town, some people were in a barber shop and they were listening to music, and one of them says to the other, "Man, what is going on here?" And they said, "No, the president of Nigeria is in town." And the guy says, "Where is Nigeria? Never heard of the country." And his colleague said to him, "No, Nigeria is the biggest country in Africa. A lot of black people there, 1 in 5 of all black people live in Nigeria. It's a great country and they love us." And the gentleman said, "Well, still, I really have no idea where that country is located." He said, "It's located in Africa." But anyway, finally, his friend says to him, "But you love Fela, don't you? You love his music. You always play Fela's music." Yeah, I know Fela. I love his music. Yeah, he's a great guy." Then the man said, "Well, this is the president of Fela's country." And the poor Baba says, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" "No, you should have told me he's from Fela's country." And so I make the point because his influence on Nigeria, on Africa, and the world is worth celebrating. I already mentioned to the planners, and now it's a pity that I'm not physically there, but I told Femi that they should tell Femi I want to invite him to a solo saxophone competition. I hope we'll fix that appointment at some point. But let me, on a more serious note, first of all, thank all the speakers. They are all my friends. And I'm really sorry that I can't be with them physically. But let me make, on a philosophical note, I want to interrogate the assumptions that underline this conversation. Anxieties about elections have always been part and parcel of Nigeria's democracy. At every twist and turn, we wonder whether we will survive. And somehow we've always survived. One of the things that has remained a recurring decimal is that as the House be able to translate to you, that is that Nigerians look back at all the energy that they've invested in the process, and we never really get something to justify our sacrifices. Now, it's important to understand that this frustration is not peculiar to Nigeria. It's not because Nigerian politicians are wicked, they are ineffective, they are evil. The reality is that this is really what politics is all about. Whether it is in the United States of America, all the excitement that people thought after Trump, everything would be hunky-dory. So in South Africa, the story was not too different. Mandela was lucky enough, he got going before people started throwing stones and so on. So I think the first point to make is that we will always be disappointed. There will always be periods of anxiety, periods of uncertainty, because democracy, permit the metaphor. For me, it's like an ordination, it's like a wedding ceremony, An ordination doesn't make the priesthood. A wedding ceremony is not a marriage. So these are mere ceremonies. A marriage starts after the ceremony. The priesthood starts after the ordination. And for me as a priest and all of us, we've always had time to pause and ask ourselves, because the realities we see are completely different from the things that we thought about. And I would like to make the same comment, because many marriages that have failed, many marriages that have become abusive, didn't start off that way. They all started on a wonderful note. And it may not be a perfect example, but just to underscore the fact that all of us must become more moderate in our expectations from politicians. Not because they are bad people. There are a lot of bad people among them, but it's not because they are bad people. And it's also not because of bad intention. I have been lucky because I sat down, and what opened my eyes was sitting down with Alhaji Shehu Shagari, our former president, way back in the 90s, after he came out of detention. Now, and I sat down for almost 2 hours listening to this old man. I just gone to greet him, telling me stories about the wonderful things he wanted to do for Nigeria, his frustrations with the National Assembly, and his frustrations with the bureaucracy. Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed is a master of the bureaucracy. I'm sure he can say the kind of things I'm talking about. So the first thing is that the intentions of a politician, even after winning elections, are contingent on a lot of other factors we don't pay attention to. So I make the point, therefore, that right now we will be disappointed no matter what happens, and none of us should deceive ourselves that the best president we are going to be convinced about the outcome before the altar and ask for blessing for their marriage, did not expect that things will end up. So, challenge I think for us in Nigeria is not every troubled marriage that ends up not being a marriage. It's not every person who is having problems as a priest or as a bureaucrat or whatever that necessarily is about. It becomes very important. That how do we engage the politicians after elections? Because the problem for us is that
I know the technical team is still trying. Is it on? Okay, let's wait. I think it's network. But he has said it all. He said we will be disappointed at the end of the day. Did you hear that? Yes. I think that's the conclusion of the matter. That come 2023, from what he sees today, will be disappointed as usual. You know, he made this statement when Nigerians elected Buhari in 2015. He released a statement saying that Buhari can never be the Messiah. I still have that statement. Because what I do is that when some prominent Nigerians write, I copy them and read over again and again. And Kuka is one of them. I also, because of that statement, I had to look for him to interview him. So I would break it down. And now he has said it again. Should I not believe him? But we can change it, can't we? We can. We can decide not to be disappointed again. But he said we always survive, even when we are disappointed. That is the Nigerian spirit. Somehow, we keep moving. Though, don't underrate that spirit. You know, there are many times you think the country will collapse. But somehow we keep moving. There was a time herdsmen were everywhere. And I needed to go see my parents in Benin. A day to the travel, in my dreams, I'll be seeing herdsmen on the road. I didn't want to fly. I wanted to drive. Because I have a lot I want to give my parents. And I can't take those things to the plane. I wanted to drive. And I like driving. But I keep seeing herdsmen. I'll tell my wife, I'm seeing herdsmen. Wife say, don't go, don't go. But inside me, is it back? But inside me, I was saying, or die and I die. Me, I must hit this road. But I will drive smartly. I was like, how can herdsmen just stop me from traveling? I started making different permutations. It might be one herdsman on the road in 2 or 3 weeks. But the way the media was running the story, I think they were in every junction. The next day, I took the car. And I didn't see herdsmen. I came back too. He's back. All right, Kuka is back. Father, we're with you.
Hello.
Hello. Go on, sir.
Hello. Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. So maybe let me just try a round of them. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello.
We can hear you. Bishop Kuka, can you
Hello?
hear me?
Okay, so let me just try and round up them, because I think, okay, let me try and round up. As I said, I was making the point. Article. Now, the fact of the matter is that, as we have seen from Buhari's presidency and from Legion to mobilize, they might use ethnicity to mobilize. It is in the nature of police beneficiaries are often those who are well in position. It is not every Fulani man who has had a wonderful deal from this presidency of Buhari. And if there is anything at all that we can learn, it is the limits of political manipulation. It is the employment mechanisms that purely and simply are tools for mobilization. But in the final analysis, and I think that Professor Mogalo labored to make that point, that nobody is ever going to govern on behalf of Muslims or Christians. Nobody is going to be able to govern on behalf of his own ethnic group. It is challenging. And I think that post-Buhari Nigeria has a dilemma, leaves us with a dilemma, but as it is clear to us now, it cannot be the case that the northern Nigeria, where Buhari comes from, has ended up the way we've ended up. It therefore, for me, suggests that we must think a little bit more creatively. Because this is the only election where none of the political actors will be talking about continuity, including the president, I mean the political, the governing party's candidate. I believe that the governing party or the candidate saying, I'm going to continue with the legacy of this administration. Because which legacy are we going to hold on to? The great MD Yusuf, who stood elections, I think in 1994 or thereabout, he came up with a fantastic, advertisement, which I've never forgotten. When at the time that at the time that General Abacha was putting himself up for president, the time that Bola Ige spoke about the 5 leprous fingers of one hand. Now, MD Yusuf in his campaign, because people were talking about the fact that
Can you hear him clearly?
it was important for Abacha to continue because continuity was important. And MD Yusuf came out with this advert. It said continuity of what? Is it continuity of hunger? Is it continuity of injustice? Is it continuity of lack of jobs? So for me, these are the critical issues. Anybody seeking to govern Nigeria about the consequences of not being able to manage diversity properly, about the consequences of leading people and making promises that politicians to shine their eyes. Because these elections, like every other elections in Nigeria, have created enough anxiety. It is important, and I'll just make 2 or 3 quick points, and then I will end. It is important for us to understand that citizenship must be the most important agenda for all of us. We need a country where everybody can feel sufficiently comfortable, because the business of government is to expand the frontiers of opportunity. Right now, there has been a narration that has become dominant based on the kind of choices that this administration makes, sources and so on and so forth. But going forward, I finished reading a book not long ago. The title of the book is How Was a Start? And it is clear to me that the way the racetrack looks, anything can happen. Okay? Nigeria feel sufficiently aggrieved. There are videos of people making incendiary statements about the consequences of a particular. Now, I think the security agencies must also begin to think and track a lot of these characters. The second point is what to do with the state of insecurity in Nigeria. I would not like to speak to what happened yesterday, the release of the 101 members of Boko Haram. They'll be released to what and to where?
Okay.
There is genuine anxiety, there is genuine fear among security agencies and among ordinary Nigerians. And so it's not enough. Because whereas I said this is one of the moments when Nigeria feels most divided, ironically, it is the period when Nigerians feel most united. And that we must create a better future, and that we have the material. Therefore, I think that I'd like to.
Thank you. Okay. I think the bishop has made enough effort. The line is not clear. Okay, can we end? Technical crew. Thank you. Fela will be happy with the effort he made. Thank you. You know, he started by saying he wonders how Fela will feel that a bishop is speaking in an event to celebrate him. I think You know, Kuka is one of the great Nigerians. I want to encourage us to read some of their works. Some of these Nigerians, if you've read Kuka's book, Witness to Justice, you will understand how Kuka is. And one way to also change a country is when you have citizens that deeply reflect. And deep reflection comes from reading. So I recommend books to you. Let's read. He talked about political manipulation there, managing diversity. Has President Muhammadu Buhari grossly mismanaged Nigeria's diversity? I hear people say that Nigeria has never been this divided. So how come a leader that ought to unify the people becomes the one to divide the people? That is, if you agree that Buhari has divided Nigeria. But from his speeches, like his Independence Day address, he spoke beautifully about the unity of Nigeria and swears to protect her at all times. But Mogalu does not believe him, because he made it clear here. You didn't call his name. You don't have to call his name. We can also deduce from your speech. You have a microphone, sir. Yes, I'm coming to you. It's on. It's on. It's on already. It's not working. Okay. So we want to start the question and answer comment time.
Hello? Very good. Let me be very clear. The matter of the diversity of Nigeria has been managed for a very long time. It is not just in this administration. The administration before it also did not manage Nigeria's diversity well. The only president I give a pass mark on the management of diversity since we returned to democracy is Obasanjo.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed, the ball is in your court. The Biafran question.
Thank you very much. You asked me to clarify what was reported as the statement from Northern Elders Forum, that if Igbo people want to leave Nigeria, we should not close the door against them. Yeah. Northern Elders Forum takes what elders are very seriously. Elders say things that make sense. They also say things with courage, and they say it with responsibility. Before we made the statement about if the Igbo want to go, don't stand in their way. And by the way, it was a long press conference. I would advise anybody who wants to really understand that to go to YouTube and just Google what I said there. It's there. But anyway, long before we said anything about the Southeast, we had said President Buhari had failed in his first term. We had publicly said, don't trust this man with power again in 2019 because he has shown no capacity to lead this country through to a second term. Northern Elders Forum said that publicly. We campaigned against him. We said, this man is bad news for Nigeria. He came to power unprepared. He just wanted power. And he's, in case anybody here doesn't know, he's a northerner. And we campaigned for him in 2015 against Jonathan only because we thought he would be a better president than Jonathan. Down the line, less than a year later, we discovered that President Buhari just wanted to be president. And we stepped forward against, in Nigerian term, our kinsman, to say to Nigerians, don't trust this man. He doesn't have the capacity or the willingness to lead this country. 2019, and we said so many times. Many times we said, resign. No one else did. People said, Northerners are asking Buhari to resign. Why not? Why not? He was democratically elected. Now, regarding the issue of the Southeast, when we made that statement, it was a long press conference. People took bits and pieces of it and said, the Southeast had become an area where the only voices you saw are the voices of crime and criminals. Professor Magalu here said we should speak the truth. We have always spoken the truth. Who is speaking for the Southeast? Where are the voices of reason? Where are the voices of leadership that should say this is the direction where we want the East to go? They're quiet. Who decides what happens on the streets in the Southeast? Who decides whose voices do we hear? There are voices of irredentists, there are voices of crime and violence. Why don't they teach young people history if they knew that? They knew that we had fought irredentism. We paid a huge price, and when I say we, I don't just mean the Igbo. Everybody paid a huge price. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people died from the north, from the southwest, from the east, in a war that was entirely avoidable. Why don't you talk about the history of the genesis of this? We don't. We don't want to fight another war. The Igbo elite has let the Igbo down because they left the streets to speak for the interests of the Igbo. And if they will not speak up, and the only voices you hear is those of the people who are saying, stay at home on Mondays, don't go out, and people stay at home and go out, you assume there's a consensus that people want to leave the country. And if we would not draw boundaries between the interests of the Igbo and the interests of Northerners, it's the same interest. What happens in the Southeast is of interest to us, and we will not apologize for that. The Igbo is a vital component of what is in Nigeria. What happens to the Igbo or where he goes or whether he stays in this country is important to Northerners. And when we see an event or we see a phenomenon that affects millions of fellow Nigerians, we will speak up. We spoke up against bandits. We spoke up against insurgents. We spoke up against everybody. We spoke against poor leadership. What is important here is to identify who speaks for a very, very vibrant part of this country. What does the Igbo want in this country? As at the time we spoke, incidentally, that video was released 2 years ago. But last year, President Buhari's people thought they could damage the Northern Elders Forum, so they went and picked a little bit of it and said, see what Dr. Baba Ahmed is saying. He's asking the Igbo to go. A year and a half down the road, after the video was released and everybody had read it. We said that's usually the president's media people's propaganda. And then people went crazy. It's, let's vote this man. He's Mauritanian, he has no business being in this country. And we knew what we were talking about. If indeed there were other Igbo people, leaders, elders, elite, politicians, who needed to stand up and say there is a grievance, there is a frustration, there is a cause behind what is going on the streets, and will champion it. Why do you hear those voices? And so we said, if there appears to be a consensus that is yes undefined, and we don't want that consensus, we don't want the Igbo to leave Nigeria. It's such a key part of Nigeria that the absence of Igbo in this country will not serve their interest, it will not serve our interest. If it sounds patronizing, that's true, because we didn't hear anybody else say anything against it. We did not and will not support the Igbo to leave this country. We believe this is his home, and the Igbo has worked and built Nigeria, and the Igbo should stay and reap the benefit of what he built.
Thank you.
But we said this. If there is a consensus, and that means everybody from the elite down to the streets, everybody wants to go. The nation doesn't need to fight a second civil war over this issue. And we got our feedback. We understood we were sending a signal, and we got that signal. The huge number, the vast majority of Igbo people do not want to leave Nigeria. This is their country, they built it. We know where these signals are coming from. They're coming from the streets and from people whose only achievement, most of them, is that they managed to leave their country and go to another country. Because we know in the north, for instance, we will miss the Igbo is the pillar, is one of the backbones of the northern economy. We say this with all sincerity because there's no village where there is no Igbo business. If you go to a village and there's no Igbo man selling something, a shop or said, leave. Leave. The north is the second biggest home of the Igbo people. But if the leaders and the elders not say anything, we are saying IPOB speaks for Igbo, and IPOB says we don't want to be part of this country. Go. I know I'm taking time. Let me just conclude. Okay. There is a serious implication behind what I'm saying now for the 2023 election. If IPOB succeeds in stopping electoral activities and damages the elections in 2023, we're going to have a serious problem. If politicians, including Peter Obi, cannot go to the Southeast and freely campaign, put up billboards and posters and campaign, canvass for votes, and other politicians cannot go to the Southeast, you are going to set in motion a trend that is going to be very dangerous and will affect the quality of the elections in 2023. It's the same thing with the bandits and the kidnappers. There are huge tracts of the north that are no-go areas. So if you don't do something about security, the elections of 2023 will be vastly affected. You need to reclaim every inch of Nigeria so that every Nigerian, wherever he is, can be free to campaign. If some of the noises we hear from the south is, don't come here, or we will decide who comes here. Every part of Nigeria can also erect barriers. And we don't want those barriers. We want people to come really under security and to do so. Now, that is the reason why it's important to pay attention. And this is the reason why I agree with Professor Makalu. If we really want a new Nigeria, this is the time to begin to speak freely and honestly and frankly. And to speak in this manner, because I believe this is a major conversation that has to be had.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please appreciate the panelists on this side? I must thank Kaudaraya Ahmed, Professor Kingsley Mogalu, Bishop Hassan Kuka, and Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed. They've spoken well. And I know Charlie Boy wants to speak. And I know you want to speak. We will speak. No, Charlie Boy will speak. And before I come to Charlie Boy, Kadara, you have to say something. You have to say something. I know you want to go. You have to say something.
I honestly think when I sit down and we have conversations about Nigeria, one of the things that miffs me a lot about it is the total arrogance of the Igbo, Yoruba, and the Hausa Fulani when it comes to Nigeria. They talk almost as if they are the only people in this country. We come on forums like this and you're talking about the national questions, and it's always Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa. What happened to the Ijaw man? The Ibibio man? Ishan, the thief man, or the man from Benue, my brothers from the Jukuns. And the reason I say this is because the conversations we're having tend to be so binary, and which is why we always end up with the wrong answer.
But who is stopping them from talking?
So the reason, let me finish. The reason why some of us partly believe in a united Nigeria, a functional united Nigeria, not a dysfunctional one, is because we recognize that minorities are likely to be better protected in a bigger union than they would be in a smaller nation. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if you talk to people who've studied history like you have, if you think about some of the atrocities committed against minorities in little pockets during the Civil War, you begin to understand what we are talking about. I sat down with Nnamdi Kanu about maybe a few weeks after he was first released from jail. I was the first journalist to interview him. I went all the way to Abia. If you see Nnamdi Kanu, if you see the pictures online where there was like a whole picture of people with the Biafra flag, I took those pictures. I posted them on Twitter. I was live on Twitter talking to him. The interview I did with him is still online. It's one of my most watched interviews. And I sat down with him and I asked him, okay, what is Biafra? And his Biafra was not limited to the 5 eastern states. He wanted Biafra in parts of Benue. He wanted Biafra in parts of Kogi. He wanted Biafra in Port Harcourt, in River State, in parts of Delta, etc., etc. It's on the record. My conversation with him is on the record. Literally every person I spoke to for that special program that I did with Nnamdi that was from those places didn't want anything to do with Biafra. The point I'm making is that we sometimes allow the bigger groups to dominate conversations which can benefit from actually having multiplicity of voices joining them, right? That's the point I'm making. Now, I do believe, and I don't know why Dr. Baba Ahmed spent so much time trying to explain his statement that if people want Biafra, give it to them. It is the right thing to say. I said it here. The right to self-determination is sacrosanct. Nobody should be forced to be in a union that they don't want a part of. Our problem now should be electing people who will make the necessary changes to our constitution that will allow these things to happen in a sensible way. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. That's the biggest issue. So that it doesn't happen in chaos and people don't die. Let's test this thing. If IPOB believes that the majority of people from the southeast want Biafra, let's find a proper mechanism for testing it. Let's do a referendum. People in Nigeria will campaign for unity. IPOB will campaign for Biafra and then allow people to vote. And whoever wins the vote should go. We saw it recently in the UK. Brexit happened. The world did not collapse because the British left the European Union. The point I'm making is that sometimes by standing and holding on to things, we break them. You have to learn to hold things. The things you love, you must hold them lightly. You hold them too tightly, you break them. And that's what's happening with Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Morgan. She just reminded me of the Willis Commission of Inquiry.
Thank you, Hakeem. Thank you, my sister, Kadere. When I ran for president in 2019, I made it very clear that I was not running as an ethnic candidate, that I'm running on a vision for Nigeria. Hakeem asked a question, and Kadria said something important. Kadria said something we should always remember. What about the minorities? That is a very important issue. And that was dealt with by the Willings Commission that you just mentioned. So part of the national question is the status of the minorities. That you don't want a tyranny of the majority. And in any constitutional restructuring of Nigeria, this must be dealt with to protect their rights. Because there are people who believe that it's all a game of numbers. It's not true. If it was only a game of numbers, Hillary Clinton would have become the president of the United States, not Donald Trump. She had 3 million more popular votes than Donald Trump. But Trump became the president because he won the Electoral College vote. There were reasons why in the founding of the United States and in their political evolution, the Electoral College was instituted. It was to protect certain interests from a tyranny of the majority. This is the difficult conversation and question we need to confront in this country. Why can't we think about a rotational presidency where the different 6 geopoliticals take their turns, but with how to make sure that, yeah, Switzerland is an example. We are not more developed than Switzerland that practices a rotational presidency. But we keep deceiving ourselves in this country. We don't want to have difficult conversations and manufacture consensus.
But we are having the conversation.
We are having it here at the Fela debate.
Yeah.
Which is, symptomatic of Fela himself. Because Fela did not shy away from the difficult questions.
Yeah.
So, to conclude, Hakim asked, what do the Igbos want? And with that question, I will extrapolate it to the Bibio, the Yorubas who want to Dudua, the Christians, all the different groups who feel, the Benue, the Middle Belt, that they are agitating. There is one simple answer without which there can be no peace in this country. They want justice. They want what? Justice. Social justice. Let's build a country that is based on justice. That's how, let us address the root of their actions rather than criminalizing the agitation. Let's address the issue.
Thank you. Microphone for Charlie Boy. Charlie Boy. Come. Okay. Is ready.
Area! Me, I know Sabi speak grammar. But I do want to say something. I want to thank, seriously, the Kutis for holding the faith for the past 20-something years. Nothing succeeds like consistency. And that's the middle name of the brand that we all have come to love as Charlie Boy. So I want us to put our hands together for the Kutis. Yes, sir. When I look at my brothers and my sister on stage, what else I want to add? Because for them, English good for their mouth. For me, English no good for my own mouth. So I know Sabi speak. But I've been educated here today. Kingsley, you'll never cease to amaze me, surprise me. Sometimes I dey wonder, I say, hey, God for just carry small of your brain, take join my own. Yeah? My sister, I've always admired you from afar. Shut up there. Shut up there. And today, as luck would have it, I finally get to meet you. I've admired you because of your brilliance, because of your intelligence, because of Chineke me. Ekaraka. And you, Akim, the dream. I remember the time we come protest for national. Where be that self? Where would they call that on a place? Remind me now. No, not National Assembly. We just gather ourselves like this. If you see as this man, if you can see as he talk to Charlie Boy, where they puff Charlie Boy, if you see as he just bring Charlie Boy like this, I said this man a proper winch, correct winch. You know, when we are talking about politician, he's a politician. If you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, forget about it. Yes. And then you're going to do like say you know they see anybody, you don't know anything. I like that your statement, all die, not die. I know it's not an original, but yes, this is how we march in the jungle. Because if we begin think about everything where they fear us, Fela don't talk am now. Na fear, na he hold us, we no fit do. What we supposed do. Yes. But you see all these people where they for stage, I am the father of their fathers. Now me see all of them, including Bishop Hassan Kuka, who is my buddy. Now me senior am too. So yes, you've been talk say, why are they look this young? I for tell you say they suck blood, like, but I no go talk that one. And they look this young because of all the young boys and girls that, you know, let me tell you something. I've been privileged to meet exceptional young people in this country. I've learned from them. I've been inspired by them. And now for them that I live. For the past 45 years of my life, it has always been nothing but about the Nigerian youths. And I've come to the conclusion, for my own sanity, I've come to the conclusion that the salvation of this country lies in the hands of its exceptional people. And who are those people? The youths. People go, they see me, then think say, this boy is still there for market. I know they market too. I don't talk before, say some part of my body know they walk. When I know hear them, it gets some part, I mean, I make you just they talk anyhow here. Some parts know they walk, some parts they walk. So, no be when people see car, they don't spray and paint. Then say, hey, this car is so brand new. They ask whether the engine they work. They ask whether the engine they work. So I'm simply here to say it's a great turnout. It's a great show. I've been inspired listening to, you know, the gentlemen and the ladies here. And what did I want to talk again?
Old age don't catch you.
Now you catch. You don't catch me. You don't catch me. I mean, do I look at me now? Thank you all. Put your hands together for yourself. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you. You would think that at some point he will become Charlie Man, but he remains Charlie Boy. You know. We have Femi Falana in our midst. Yeah. to wait to hear from Fela. But before I call on Fela, Bishop Kuka is intrigued by the argument of Kadara and Mogalu, including the words of Hakim Baba Ahmed. So he wants to respond to the question of minority. Hello, Father Kuka. Let's put him on. We can hear him.
I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Oh, yes, no, I said I'm sorry about how fractured my conversation was. But on this minority question, I think that the word has been subject to a lot of abuse and misuse. And I think it doesn't help in thinking through the problems of Nigeria. In part because when we think of minorities, I think we are focusing on minority as in numbers. So the Igbos are this many, the Hausas are this, But for me, this is really not what it's all about. Now, and the best place to look at, if you are talking about minorities as numbers, it is to look at the state of Israel, which is barely 24,000 square kilometers, and about the size of a local government in Nigeria, and compare that with only a population of about 18 or 20 million. Compare their power to the power of the Arab world that is almost 1 million square kilometers, holding a population of about 430 or 440 million people. But which Arab nation, or even the Arab nations put together, what do they do when Israel sneezes? The question, I think, to my mind, I cannot, for example, imagine that where I stand, with the quality of education that I have, and that all of us who are on this panel having this conversation, that we should be defined by the numerical strength of the communities where we come from. The most dangerous thing that has happened after 1957 is what Northern Nigeria decided to do with the Minority Commission report. That whereas developments took place elsewhere, the Northern elite deliberately made sure that and the instrumentalization hegemony is what in Northern Nigeria in relation to whether it's Christians or whether it is just non-Muslims. And my friend Hakim Baba Ahmed and I mean, he knows how far we have traveled on the road of this conversation. I am putting together some of the abuses that I received from the time Buhari came to power, because at least I can hit my chest and say that before Dr. Hakim and others saw what I saw, I had already raised the flag over the fact that I didn't think that
network. Yes, it's on the road.
Nigeria still remains.
Please let me call on Femi Falana to please join us here. Sir, please come up here. We want to see you here. Please come. Yes, please come up, come up.
Economy that is ahead of us, we should be thinking.
Okay, we have to allow Father Kuka to keep moving. We need to broaden the conversation now. And, okay, I will lend you my microphone. Yes.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I was in another program. Lanra Rugundade was launching a book. And in order to arrest my attention there, he made me the chairman there. I'm happy to be here. Listening to wonderful, very patriotic, very committed people on the high table, I just want to say this about this debate. And I think we're all getting it wrong. This business of Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo. Please, let us speak. Let us learn from Fela. Fela wasn't bothered about ethnic, all these irredemptive demands. Fela's song was on class basis, authority stealing. When Fela was speaking about authority stealing, warning all of us in the 70s that a group of people have devised their own language for looting. And for those of us who were lawyers, what is this guy talking about? And Fela said, a common man has stolen something at the bus stop. You know, out of confusion, the ordinary people too will shout ole ole. They put a tire on his neck and burn him. We are still going on with that kind of mob justice in Nigeria today. But according to Fela, turn your eye to the other side. Criminals will steal billions with pen. Fela said, pen get power, gun no get. And Fela was not talking of Yoruba Igbo. He said, all these criminals, in alliance with imperialism, were working hand in hand to pauperize the African people. When we were undergraduates, Fela advertised one book. He took it around all the campuses. How Europe underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. Please take any of Fela's song. Beast of no nation. Fela was making a mockery of United Nations, where a few countries, people will call the Security Council, would decide for all of us. And that hasn't changed. The point I'm making therefore is that the most important part of this man-good constitution, chapter 2, the fundamental objectives and directing principles of state. Most Nigerians are not aware that that constitution says there shall be free education for every Nigerian child. Section 18. Section 16 says the wealth of our country shall be deployed to promote happiness of all Nigerians, and that the wealth shall not be concentrated in the hands of a few or a group. What has happened? They say, like this regime now, oh, in our 2023 budget, we are going to sell the remaining assets. Whose assets? The ones you sold. What has happened? Privatization. Now, Dr. Mangalu will know about it. I'm having a quarrel with the central bank now. Sorry. A bank collapsed. Sky Bank, now Polaris Bank. You have spent about 1.6 trillion to revitalize the bank. You now want to sell it for 40 billion naira. Where is that done? And I had to write to the Central Bank of, please, under the Freedom of Information, what is up? What are you doing? He said, well, we shall keep you posted. He didn't say we are not selling. Now, unless we address the question of poverty promoted by neoliberal policies of the government, there's no way we're going to get out of Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. In each of the groups, and this is important, in each of the groups, whether among the minorities or the majorities, there are classes. Among the ethnic groups, members of the ruling class, they don't care about religion or ethnicity. When they are in the boardroom to plan how to loot the treasury, they don't care about where you come from. And so please, when we are gathered here, we're talking of Willings Commission. It was a fraud. And they say, oh, because of Willings Commission, we have chapter 4, we have fundamental right. Bullshit. Whenever the British was going to leave any colony, they now realize, if we don't put Bill of Rights in their constitution, all our assets will be privatized, nationalized. We too may be in trouble if these people gain their freedom. So let's put Bill of Rights. They did it in Ghana before 1960. They did it in India in 1949. So there was nothing new about chapter 4. It was to protect the British, not Nigerians. And what have they done with the minorities? There are minorities among the majorities, if you must know. The poor are the minorities. In all our area, whether you're talking of the both, they have just shared 57 marginal fields, oil blocks. When you get an oil block, you become an instant billionaire. Without investing a dime, you just take the oil block offshore. So one of them sold his own interest and came back, a retired general, a pensioner, who was given by Abacha. He said, I have spent my money. I have saved money for my family. I have $500 million. I don't know what to do with it. At that time, teachers were not paid in schools. Children. So please, let us address the problems of poverty, of education, of illiteracy. ASU has been on strike for 8 months. Now, most of us, my generation, went to school free of charge, including the people in government. Some of them were even receiving salaries to encourage them to go to school. Now, we have 20 million Nigerian children, the children of the poor, of all the ethnic groups, who are now on the street. 20 million. You want to compete with other countries that are putting every child in school? Once you are 6, in some poor countries, once you are 6, a child is 6, and has not been registered for education, the parents will be called. Are you aware your child will be 6? You haven't registered the child. Because it's compulsory that every child must go to school. It is compulsory that everybody must have access to health. Because when we are gathered here as members of the elite, and we are talking about this Hausa Fulani business, I laughed. Because when you go to the people there, they don't know what you are talking about. The people want better living conditions. They want their children to go to school. When they have graduated, they want them to get jobs so that they can provide for the family. But when we want to share power, members of the ruling class, we want to share power. Then we are talking of, oh, it's Yoruba's turn, it's Emilokon, it's Hausa's turn. Push it. If it's Ubaja Olokon, if it's your Emilokon, what are the programs? What are your programs to take Nigeria out of poverty? This country, please, this is a wonderful country. Wonderful country that should be ahead of most countries in the world. So if people are talking of 2023, please, by the way, we have to help them. Members of the political class don't know what they are doing. So we have to give programs to them. Somebody has been trying to be president for 30 years. He says he's still writing a program. If, like the Yorubas will say, if it takes you 3 years to learn madness, when are you going to practice it? And that is why I am imploring Nigerians, please, let's stop talking about this ethnic thing. Let us talk about poverty, right to education for our children, access to health, good roads. When you get to the market, nobody asks about your religion. And you know, Fela had that beautiful song. I can't remember now. No. I think it's that one. He said he was planning to go to the market. No. Structural adjustment program. Fela said he was planning to go to the market. After he had done his plan, and he wanted to go to the market, government plan came, and everything was scattered. And that is what is going on now. Please, the last one, and I beg you, all of us, particularly the elite, we are not ashamed that the Nigerian currency is one of the worst in the world today. Even Cotonou, Sefa, is now higher than the Naira. Yes. Now, please, what do? We all gather here. Many of us have changed our money in the bank to dollars. Oh, yes. You are not aware there are certain schools in Nigeria that they charge dollars. Some houses in Ikoyi, Maitama, they charge rents in dollars. So everybody is looking for dollars. Even now in Abuja, to bribe now, they no longer take Naira. You bribe in dollars. Now, please, all of us must sit down. Is this the country we want for ourselves? For delegates, you bribe delegates in dollars. Meanwhile, Section 20 of the CBN Act, Section 20 says, the legal tender in Nigeria shall be Naira and Kobo. In fact, it's a criminal offense, Section 20, subsection 5, to spend dollars or any foreign currency in Nigeria. It's a criminal offense. And so, in order to help our country, because you can't dollarize an economy that is import-oriented. Everything we get from abroad. The Chinese wanted to help Nigeria. They sat down with the central bank. Please, can we do what they call currency swap? Whatever you are buying China, you can pay Naira. Whatever we are buying here, pay yuan. The West does not like it. It's because everybody must worship the dollars. So I am therefore saying, the greatest problem of majority and minority of poor people is poverty. When you are talking of ethnicity, you cover the shame and you help the ruling class to cover up their iniquities. I'm therefore suggesting, in a debate on ethnicity, let us find out, let us discuss the national question. Who gets what, when, and where? So that all the Yoruba members of the ruling class, all the members of the ruling class in Igbo land, in Hausa land, Ibibio among others, we must now challenge them. What is the program to help the poor? For 2023, it's not enough to say go and vote. And don't not talk about the presidency alone. For those of you in Lagos, in Hausa here, there are 40 legislators. Now we are only discussing the budget of Abuja. No state government in Nigeria, nowhere do we discuss the budget of our state government. The 774 local government have no budgets. So when you talk of Buhari and somebody wants to go to Abuja, let us start from below. If we can get the 40 people in Alausa to be responsible, our problems will have been reduced. Councillors, let us start. But what do we do? The elite, on the day of the election, we are watching television. So whether you like it or not, they will vote for themselves and install themselves for the next 4 or 8 years. I therefore beg you, this business of ethnicity and religion, let us put them aside and discuss the problems confronting Nigeria. Why are we not where we should be? If we address that, other things will fall in place. When you are talking about rotating power, good, but rotating power for what? What is the program that must be carried out when a Yoruba man goes to power or an Igbo man goes to power? If we just simply say rotate power without conditionalities, we are simply promoting injustice in our country. Because the people who want to rotate power, it's not about democracy. Do you understand what I mean? We are talking of the elite taking power alone. It's not about the poor. Majority of they say if you want to be a councillor or anything in Nigeria, you must have a school cert. Abi, if we ask ourselves, what happens to 60 million illiterate Nigerians? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, Femi Falana has brought the class dimension into the discourse. Microphone, please. Do we have microphones? Okay, can you give her this?
Please tell Edmund Obino, some of us are waiting to contribute. We are here, online.
Sorry, what was this? Thank you all very much for being here. I'm Miss Yemisi Ransom Kuti. And every time I come here, I say, as the head of the family, I really shouldn't say anything. I should just sit down and welcome all the comments. But I always get passionate, and I'm very, very thankful for the speakers that we have had today, because it's been a no-holds-barred discussion. People have spoken exactly how they feel, not caring whose ox is gored. So thank you again. Thank you, Yenny, and all of you who put all this together. Yes, let's thank them. Let's say a big, big thank you. The family that's worked so hard to keep Fela's legacy alive. My comment is really zeroing it back to us, we the people. Because we come every year, we hear, finally I said the same thing, and I is saying almost every year. We know the challenges, but we seem to believe that it is happening to somebody else in some other country, and that we don't have any responsibility. The election is not the end of governance. It's just part of the process of governance. We, the people, are responsible for whatever happens in our country. And we should turn the searchlight on ourselves as individuals first. You that wants to have 10 children and 5 wives, and you are complaining that the educational system is terrible. You, the person that within your own family, you are oppressing your brothers and sisters. They cannot talk to you. You are the Oga of the everybody. And you think Buhari should be considering who you are. You who do not love your own brothers and sisters, not to talk of your neighbor, not to talk of your community. You want Sanwo-Olu to create a peaceful and just society. So I think it is action time. But the action has to be by every single one of us saying, God, I'm very sorry, I have sinned. It is my fault that Nigeria is where it is. There must be something I'm not doing right, either as a person or as part of a community. And I'm going to promise you, Allah, God, whoever you believe in, that it will be different from now, not February. From now, from today, I'm going to look within myself to see how I can make things better. In myself, behave better. In my family, working together. In my community, make it safer, cleaner. I cannot be spending money on foreign imports and be buying Addis and shoes and want Nigeria to progress. When the tailor and the woman who is cooking ewa and dodo is not thriving, you have to spend your money in your community. You have to patronize your own local goods. You have to be a proud Nigerian first before Nigeria can be better. So can we all promise today that from today, that action time starts with me. I will organize better in my community, in my home, in my local government. As Mr. Femi Fela, we are doing something in Lagos Island. We have a committee with stakeholders and the local government. We've had an economic summit. We've had a needs assessment survey of the needs of the youths and businesses in that local government. We have done a webinar on the comparative advantage of that local government. What should the policy about around the economy, the housing, and all of that. What is the best thing that Lagos Island can do? And based on that webinar that we did, we're having a business fair in November at TBS. What I'm trying to say is that if you organize better, all these politicians, how many of them are there? If you organize better and get stakeholders within your local government to begin to look at the budget of the local government, to begin to look at the policy, create some priorities, then bring all your stakeholders, your partners. We have a partner here, GIZ, stand up and be recognized. This is the German government sitting there. And they are ready to support any initiative that has to do with economic development, particularly if it's collective and driven at the local levels, looking at how to impact the skills, the economic and skill and upskilling of young people within the local government. So let's work together to make it happen. I want to thank you all once again for giving us this very impassioned and very intelligent and intellectual debate. But let us take it down to the grassroots. Each and every one of us take responsibility. Action time begins with you and me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Yemisi. Thank you. She just talked about community engagement, governance by community. Okay, just make your point briefly because we are about to round off. It's
Thank you very
almost,
much,
yes.
Chair. My name is Afiong El Afrong from the Moyo Solidarity Center. I want to say a few things, that it's a bit frustrating listening to some of the conversations. And I'm glad that Mr. Fela, was able to intervene the way he did, because I find that we do that a lot in Nigeria, especially the media. The truth of the matter is that we have very superficial conversations. We talk about, for example, the Hausa Fulani. There is nothing like Hausa Fulani. There are Hausas and there are Fulani, two totally different people. Let's lay that, to one point. The question of ethnicity is largely irrelevant. The question, there are only two ethnic nationalities in this country. Only two. The oppressors and the oppressed. It's a class problem that we have in Nigeria, not an ethnic problem. That's a superficial discussion. Dr. Baba Ahmed said something about who speaks for the East. I want to ask him, who speaks for the North? Is it the Elders Forum or is it actually Miyetti Allah? These are questions that can be put back. If IPOB, has some issues it's raising, these are issues that are coming from the streets. Are they valid or not? That's the question we need to ask ourselves, not to attempt to criminalize IPOB. And Miyetti Allah continues to represent the North, although the Elders Forum may think they represent the North. They don't. Now, the question of unity, there's this question of, we don't have unity in Nigeria. That's not true. There is unity, and there is unity of purpose. What is this unity I'm referring to? It's a unity of the classes. The oppressor class in this country is the most unified segment in this country. And that's the truth of the matter. And they have unity of purpose. And the purpose is to exploit the masses. Okay? So let's have clarity that there is unity of purpose. Now, there's also this question of civilized nations, like Dr. Mogalu was sharing, when he was abroad, he worked in the UN and in America. This is how things go. They are criminal nations, and they are particularly, quote unquote, civilized. And it's not actually civilization to the extent we think we are uncivilized. We talk about even countries, Germany, the UK, France, criminal nations, that their wealth and their development was built on crime and continues to be built on crime. Let's have those serious, real discussions. On the question of nation building, it's very true from day one, all the so-called founding fathers, and you notice that in Nigeria we have no founding mothers. We constantly have founding fathers. they had no agenda for nation building. Unlike, say, an example of somebody like Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, that from day one, there was an intention to bring together a nation. So it's not a big thing, really, to develop a nation. What has been developed are interest groups. And when we talk about restructuring, the only kind of restructuring we need in Nigeria is a restructuring of the redistribution of resources. It's not about ethnicity, because even if you have Odua Nation or Biafra or Arewa, their ruling class will still be thieves and exploit, the mass of their people. So the point I'm making is that a lot of these discussions, they're very superficial. And lastly, just rounding up, it's about system change, changing the system of this country. And 2023, if the Labour Party wins, may take us just one, but obviously we're not going into paradise because of the politics of Labour in and of itself, not necessarily of whosoever, is the flag bearer, because as we know, Nigerian politics is very fluid. So I just want to say that we need to start to have deeper conversations in Nigeria, not all these superficial conversations which make it look like, Buhari is a bad person, this one is a good. These are all moralistic discussions, so Buhari is bad, but me, Afyong, I'm good, so when I get in, I will do things. If you don't change the system, you'll have the same results. That's the point I want to make. Thank you, Chair.
Hello. Moralistic conversations are also deep conversations. At one point, we must also note there are different dimensions to political problems. There is the class dimension, it is valid. There is the ethnic dimension, it is valid. There are different dimensions to issues. And one of the dimensions is the class dimension. Other dimensions are not superficial. I just needed to make that point. All right, let me come to you. The microphone to, okay, Mr. Brettwaite, I will come to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Femi Afolabi Brown. And before I proceed, I will first of all like to appreciate Sister Yeni Kuti for the great work you are doing on this. I came here personally because of you. I like your father, Fela, but I do not know much about him. I grew up in a house where they didn't listen to Fela's music. Very Christian, pious, that kind of thing. But I will tell you what I like about your dad. I'm a person who works out a lot. Every image of Fela I've ever seen on the posters, everywhere, he always had a good physique. He could have succeeded as a model if he tried. So I appreciate that about him. Thank you. Yeah, my comment is about, if you are a little bit lazy, you will always be looking for a quick fix. I will give you an example. Initially, people were killing people with daggers, but because they wanted to make it quicker, they started looking for the machine gun. Then they graduated to weapons of mass destruction so that something can happen on a large scale. And the same way I look at the reverse for solutions. If you need something to happen on a grand scale in terms of change, you need to look for a quick solution. The quick solution for Nigeria may not be as quick as a lot of people will expect, but I believe that any major change that will happen in Nigeria will come from a change of mindset. Most of the things I know today, most of my values, my ideologies, were given to me, were imparted in me by my father. I later heard things from the school, I later heard things from the churches, and anything that doesn't align with what my father told me, I found it a little bit difficult to believe. So I'm emphasizing the importance of the role of family. We keep talking about youth, that the youth are the future. Alhaji Baba Ahmed brought a little boy here, describing him as our future. Indeed, the children are our future. But what kind of children are we producing? Who is fathering them? Who is teaching them in school? What are they being taught in school? It takes us back to the issue of education, which my brother, who looks almost exactly like my father's son, Edmond Obilo, emphasized one way or the other, that education is the fundamental source of change. Now, the problems Nigeria, if you look at all the problems we have, we can actually itemize them and incorporate them into the curriculum of Nigeria, of the Nigerian education. I mean, you take a little boy who just started school. The teachers from primary one, the teachers already teaching him how to be honest, how to have integrity, how to campaign against corruption. And gradually you expand that even up to university level, that eventually corruption and things like that are stigmatized. I think if we do that for the coming generation, if we lay the foundation for that, then we're likely going to have a future that will make a difference. You kept emphasizing the Singaporean case, and all the foundation came from education. The conjunction of education and good family orientation, parental impartation, combined with the things they teach you in school, is what I think basically we need to change a society.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are ending this event 5 minutes past 5. Please, let's just hit the nail on the head. And Mr. Braithwaite will be the last speaker.
Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, past 3. We are ending by 5 minutes past 3. So we have 5 minutes more.
Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cornelius Udofia. I happen to be the founder of the CMC Gladiators of Repute. And of course, if the people who are actually supporting Big Brother Naija, the people who are supporting Big Brother Naija, if they can throw their weight behind to support a good initiative like this, I think Nigeria will be a better place for all of us. And I want to please urge all of us to please appreciate the organizers of this platform. Please appreciate them. Appreciate them. Thank you. Most especially Yeni Kuti, Uncle Femi, and all the people that put this together. I have been a very consistent attendee of this event, and I promise I will continue to be part and parcel of this as far as I live.
Thank you.
Now, when our boss, Professor Kingsley Ayodele, thank you, Ayodele Mogalu was talking, he actually took us to a very, very great memory lane that this country is one of the best countries we have in the society. And what I want us to take back home is the fact that whether we like it or not, all of us has benefited from this country. And we don't have no other country than Nigeria. And for me, I'm a proud Nigerian. I'm a proud Nigerian. And being a proud Nigerian, Nigerian has actually done so much for us. But the main issue that we are having is the fact that we don't have leaders. We don't have good leaders. We have those I can describe as rulers. Rulers. Because good leaders actually protect and of course, always think for the betterment of the society. Our current leaders are not doing that. And about just last month, some, so to say, unknown gunmen actually killed a lot of people from Senator Ifeanyi Uba convoy when he was coming back from a journey. And just last week, my uncle, who is a senator, Senator Albert Oba from Akwa Ibom, 2 of his head were killed, particularly in Olu, Imo State, just last week. So my question goes to Mr. Femi Falana, who is one of the very best we have in this country, because I look up to him as a role model. He is actually a member on my platform, which is the CMC Gladiators. So I have a lot of respect for him. So my question goes to him. Now, one of your colleagues, High Chief Mike Uzekome's son, actually called on the president to release Nnamdi Kanu, who is currently facing a treasonal offense, so that we can have peace. Because most of the people that kill people at the east.
You have spoken now for 5 minutes.
I'm coming, sir. I'm going to run up, sir.
Round off.
I'm going to run up, sir.
Yeah.
I'm going to run up. Thank you. Most of the people that kill at the east, the so-called Biafra, because I happen to be affected last from my uncle.
Round off, sir. Round off.
Now the question is, Sir Femi Falana, do you support the fact that for peace to reign in this country, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu should be given a state pardon, which was a call by your colleague, High Chief Mike
Thank
Zekome?
you. Thank
That's
you.
my question.
Thank you. Mr. Braithwaite.
Thank you. Congratulations to the Kuti family, Yeni and her siblings, and all the organizers. This is a very, very wonderful occasion. Yeni, your dad and my uncle were tied at the umbilical cord. Tunji Braithwaite was himself one of those great men who have left a legacy, and we want to step into that legacy. I will make a request to the organizers because of this theme that says action time. And I want to ask them, please, that come April next year, which would be after the election, a number of things said here that I believe can be actioned in April, which is to take on this issue of governance. Most of us don't have a clue about how local governance works. And I truly believe that it is important to have this kind of seminar where we're told after the election is over, after the election is done, what next? Regardless of who, you said we might be disappointed, and I believe the bishop were. After the election is done, what do the citizens do? How do we engage with our local government chairman? How do we engage with our councillors? What are we meant to do? You said something about the budget. How do we hold them to the budget? Is it our business? Can we call them on the phone? So we do not know what to do beyond election 2023. And I would just like that I'm one of those who is also stepping into the race. I'm running for governorship of Lagos State. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Under the NRM.
Thank you. Now we are rounding off here. We have 1 minute to round off. Let's start from Femi Falana. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Starting from the last speaker, the elections are coming, and people are going to come to you to vote for them. So you must sit them down. House of Assembly, House of Rep, Lagos, for instance. We have 24 people in the House of Reps in Abuja. We don't know them, apart from the speaker. We have 40 people in Alausa here and 3 senators. They are supposed to hold constituency meetings like this one. We have to insist on those meetings after the election. On Nnamdi Kanu, the trial cannot be concluded. The government cannot try him. I know the government is not competent to try him. Shewore was charged with treason, treasonable felony in 2019. After we took the first witness, the government couldn't go on. So the government has been adjourning the case. And that is the problem with politically motivated cases. What the government should do is to sit down with all aggrieved people in the country and negotiate. If you are negotiating with terrorists, why can you not sit down with Nnamdi Kanu and others? You know, so, and that is my point. And I think it was Dr. Mongalu was talking about justice. Equals must be treated equally. So if you want to build a country, it must be on the platform of justice and fair play. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Mongalu.
Hello? Oh, great. Okay. Well, I don't have much to say. I think I've said a lot already, other than to just stand by several of the comments that have been made, especially our sister Yemisi Kuti and our other sister as well, who talked about class. The class dimension is very important. But I do agree with Obilo that it doesn't mean that the other dimensions don't matter. We don't want to move from one unreality to another reality. So we have to look at the whole thing. To come back to my main point, Nigerians must begin to have difficult, challenging, uncomfortable conversations. We must build or rebuild a national consensus on the following questions. What is Nigeria? Who is a Nigerian? Who owns Nigeria? Or does anybody own Nigeria, or do all of us own Nigeria? Can we interrogate the constitutional structure of this country and see whether it works for us, or if it doesn't, create one that actually reflects the will of the people of Nigeria so that it has legitimacy and can work for us. And everybody's perspective is legitimate. Let nobody think that the narrative should be only about them and their own view of themselves or their role in Nigeria. So we need to come at this like mature people. If you look at some of the Western countries that I've talked about, yes, we know there are historical crimes. That's okay. Yes, but they are not the reason the bandits are wrecking Zamfara. They are not the reason you have insecurity in the southeast. So let us be honest with ourselves and not spend too much time on these very romantic historical accusations. Face ourselves. We have responsibility for our country. We are independent. Now that we found freedom, what are we going to do? So these national conversations about Nigeria, what it means to each and every one of us, and where we are going as a country, and how we are going to get there is the task for the next phase of the Nigeria project. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed.
Thank you very much to the organizers and the Fela family once again. I'm honored. I'm glad I came to this function. And as I said, it's been revealing. I have learned a lot. And I hope that I have said something that is useful. If I have to say anything in emphasis, it will be to say, get involved. Get involved. This is our country. We may have a ruling class, and we do have a ruling class, and it has no ethnicity. It has no religion. It cuts across everybody. I said this when I was talking. I'll repeat it again, and I'm happy I found vindication in the speech, in the comments of everybody. They can be reckless enough to bring the roof down on our head. Don't let them. Get involved. The way they are going for the quest for 2023 elections, believe me, they can bring the roof down on our head. They are that desperate. Our eyes are opening. We're saying here there are only two classes in this country. No ethnic groups, no religious groups. Only two classes. The ruling class and the rest of us. If you define yourself in the latter part, and that means it's not your business what happens, it's only what happens to you, then you are in even more trouble than you are. Your identity matters, your religion matters, where you come from matters, justice matters. Everybody wants justice. So I'm going back with a lot of lessons. I'm going back to Hausa Fulani and my sister. I am, we do exist. We in the north many of us have faith in Nigeria. We believe we should continue to exist as a country. We believe that there are a lot of issues we have swept under the carpet for too long. We hope that there will be a leadership that will emerge in 2023 that will put the country on the table and allow us to have an honest examination of what is wrong that breeds insecurity and hostility among us. We believe we can run a country without these hostilities among us, and we must fix it. We must do it for our children, we must do it for our grandchildren, and we need to do it for ourselves so that when our end comes, we will say, thank God we have contributed our peace to Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Election 2023 action time. We need to fight poverty. That has been highlighted here. We need social justice. We have spoken about that. We must address the constitutional question. We must look at our worldviews. We have to look seriously at the ethnic question. And we have to look at ourselves and then reflect deeply. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your cooperation. And let me leave you with this. It is about discovering the duties of life and directing them in the interest of society. It is about striving by right means to attain happiness. The future of Nigeria is in our hands. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am Edmond Ovido. Yes, so, vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. Edward, thank you. Brilliant. Everybody say, yeah, yeah. One more time? Yeah. Now, all protocols standing. You're quite aware that the Felabration debates is synonymous with the art, the competition, dance competition, and the Fela fashion show. Right now, we just want to make a presentation for the winners of this year's art competition. Very important because it encompasses everything that Fela stands for. I'm going to ask our guests to accommodate us and give out the checks to the winners. We're going to start with the third place, which was Mr. Akinola Uluwatobi Kazim. Can you come forward, please? And come and stand. Where is he? Is he in the audience? Akinola, where are you? He has disappeared. Please come and stand by your... Edmund, can you come and give our third place? Thank you. That is, the award was 150,000 naira and an extra 50 from the Captain Wally Buckner Foundation. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. Second place, we have Uzoma Vincent Chibuzo. Uzoma Vincent Chibuzo, are you here? Would you like to do number 2? Can you help me give us the check for the second prize? Present him, thank you. Second prize is 250,000 naira and an extra 50 from the Buckler Foundation. Give him a round of applause, please. And first prize goes to Annie Gio, my apologies, Annie Gioru Omalade Babatunde. Please could you come to the stage, please? Thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause, please. We had contestants from all over the world. We had the judges, Prince Yemi Shillong, Mufu Onifari and Sarah Bulus to come and judge. It was a fantastic day. Please give them a round of applause again. I would like to use this opportunity to thank the Felabration Committee, Yeni Kuti, the Fela family, my family, and the judges, sorry, not the judges, yeah, I'm going to do that. And all the speakers and the moderator, and of course, all of you that came to come and support us every single year. Hope all of you went away learning something to take away to not just your constituents, to your houses, to your families, and to the rest of the world. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, 7-Up and Commando Energy Drink, Gulda, Legends, also Chelsea. Now, the festivities begin. Everybody say, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Before we all disperse, thank you, Shegun. I just wanted to say one more thing. You know, all our speakers and our moderator have come today and they have spoken brilliantly. The only problem I have with this brilliance is that we will all go away and we'll wait until next year before we say, okay, let's converge and talk again. That's why this symposium is called Action Time. Let us do action. Let's not just listen and forget about it. Action time. Thank you.
Everybody say, yeah, yeah. Celebration begins.